for excellence to aid in becoming more successful in doing business with the federal government. I'm your host, Mark Morlum.
And I'm your co-host, Kylie Faraz. A few housekeeping items before we get started. Each presentation will be recorded and shared for on-demand viewing to the Facilities and Construction category Interact page, and also the GSA YouTube channel. We will begin recording now. If you would like to see subtitles, you can click on the box in the bottom right, as it is titled Subtitles. There will also be a Q&A after each session, where we will attempt to address all questions. However, due to today's tight schedule, any of your questions not addressed will be followed up in the Q&A document posted on the Facilities and Construction category Interact page in the days following this event. So if you miss anything today, don't panic, you can always check it out later. We encourage you to provide comments and interact with other attendees in the chat area. Please make sure all of your questions for the presenters are provided in the Q&A box, and that is located at the bottom of your screen as well. Your questions are important to us and we don't want to miss one. Today, all attendees will be in listen-only mode. This helps ensure a smoother process and experience for all of us. For those interested, 3 CLPs will be issued for those attending. And now I turn it back over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Kylie. You can also adjust your view using the box at the top right of your screen for optimal viewing. We will offer a couple breaks during today's events. The schedule will be shown during each break so you know which sessions are coming up next. Throughout the event, we'll be asking polling and knowledge check questions, so please be sure to respond and stay engaged. It is a great way to let us know your feedback. In fact, let's try a poll question right now. Take it away, Kylie.
I'd be happy to. So for our first poll question, we have 2 questions for you. The first one is, how long have you held your multiple award contract? 0 to 3 years, 4 to 6 years, 6 to 9 years, or 10 plus years? And the second question is, if your contract is 10 plus years or older, have you submitted a new offer for a streamlined offer, AKA continuous contract? Yes, no, or I don't know. We'll have 20 seconds to get your answers in. Okay, looks like the poll just closed. Let's see those results. All right, most of you said with 57%, 10 plus years. And for question 2, it looks like 31 of you, 31%, 39% is the highest with I don't know. So great job, everyone. Now I turn it back over to you, Mark. Mark, you're
muted.
Sorry, everyone. So I was just mentioning, after each poll, feel free to close that window. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Mary Rui, Region 6, Regional Commissioner of FAST, and the Category Manager for the government-wide Facilities and Construction category. In these roles, Mary's leadership drives effective and efficient government and industry interactions to assist agencies in achieving their mission. Over to you, Mary.
Hey, Mark, thank you, and welcome everybody. Good morning and good afternoon, wherever you're located. I see we've got people from Tennessee, Hollywood, Florida, and Texas, and I'm sure a lot more states across the country. So just welcome. Again, as Mark said, I'm Mary Rui. I'm the Regional Commissioner for our Federal Acquisition Service here in, I have to say, Chiefs Kingdom, home of the Super Bowl winners here in Kansas City. So we're still excited about that. I'm happy to see that we've got 339 registered attendees today. We've got an agenda that's full, and we hope you enjoy it and you get as much as you can out of it. So as you know, the current administration signed the infrastructure bill, and that is going to create a lot more opportunities across the government to update and maintain many of the government federal facilities. So there's a large need for products and services that each of you provide and can help execute these improvements. So the Biden administration is focused on increasing small business participation and creating a more diverse and resilient federal marketplace to grow the economy and build strong supply chains. So today, as part of this 339 registered attendees, 75% of you are small business. And small business is the building blocks of our nation. So thank you for attending and partnering with GSA. So today you're going to hear the theme, Striving for Excellence. And as you hear about all the actions and activities that are occurring, you'll see that we're striving to be better, and there's always room for improvement. So today, as part of the agenda and Striving for Excellence over the next couple of hours, you're going to hear about some wonderful innovation and partnerships that are going on. So Teresa McCarthy, the director of our center, has had great success in handling part number orders, and you'll be hearing more about that a little bit later. Our partners from the DLA will be here and talking about how we can reduce frustrated freight, which we all know is a very important topic especially to our overseas customers. And we also will hear from the Department of Energy, GSA, and FEMP. They're going to brief about the government-wide project to maintain photovoltaic systems. You'll hear that PVs, and those are basically the solar arrays that you see on rooftops all across the country, even on houses now, to save energy. So this will help reduce the federal government's reliance on carbon-based fuels. So in closing, in line with the theme of striving for excellence, we know there's always opportunity for improvement. So we really want to hear from you, your ideas and suggestions on how we can improve or things that we should consider moving forward in the future. And you can share your thoughts in today's session through Q&A or the chat boxes. And then as always, after the session and anytime, please reach out to your CO or the Teresa McCarthy, Tyler Sykes, our center leadership, and share your thoughts with them. And lastly, I want to thank all the speakers that are taking the time to share information with us today. And I want to give a shout out to Amy Stucker, Mark Moreland, Kylie Faraz, Kristen Gergo for organizing and executing this event. So I'll be staying on and listening and learning as much as I can today. So thank you all. Mark, back to you.
Sounds good. Thanks, Mary. It is now my pleasure to introduce Teresa McCarthy, the Heartland Acquisition Center Director. Teresa is unable to attend with us today in person, but she was eager to share a video recording of all the wonderful things going on in the Acquisition Center to assist our vendors. I'm pulling up that video now.
Good morning to some and good afternoon to others, depending on where you are in the great United States. I am Teresa McCarthy, the director of the Heartland Acquisition Center, and so grateful to be with you, at least on video today. I had an event that I had planned, and so I'm not going to be here in person, but thank goodness for technology, and we can record my greeting. So again, welcome to the R6 Industry Day, where our theme is Striving for Excellence. FY22 was in some ways a rocky year for the Heartland Acquisition team, but in many areas we made some great strides. Prior to getting into the multiple award schedule program, I'd like to just touch on a bit of supply information. MRFS in FY22 finished out with $155 million in sales, a bit above our FY21 sales number of $152 million. And MRFS in Gen 2, the planning is underway. An incumbent survey was issued and closed February 2023. Thank you to those that responded. The RFI for a wider industry will be posted on eBuy sometime in March of 2023. Please watch for posting on eBuy. MRO took a slight dip in sales for FY22, finishing out at $40 million as opposed to $46 million in FY21. MRO Generation 2 backyard is underway with 7,000 plus NSNs being added. An RFI was sent out and wanted to thank all of you for early responsiveness, and an RFQ will be sent soon to be issued via email to our RT2 vendors. Again, for supply, just want to touch on some enhancements that the supply team put in place. There's been a big emphasis on part number sales. Part number sales in FY22 were $23.4 million, and for the first quarter in FY23, we already have a sales of $9.7 million, well ahead of last year at this time. Striving for excellence is a great theme for the supply team. They do so on a daily basis. As an example of this is the work in automation. They continue to refine the Instaquote process and the Hackman bot, our automated quote processing RPA bot. Hackman, which has processed tens of thousands of orders according to predetermined business and FAR-compliant evaluation logic, improving on our customers' experience by continuing to lower wait times. Both of these enhancements have saved the center between 5 to 6 full-time equivalents per year due to the automation of the manual work involved in processing micro purchase orders. Our supply program remained strong throughout the year and finished up in a great place. Switching to our math program. Our math program saw tremendous changes. A high turnover rate combined with the heavy workload brought a lot of challenges to the center. However, despite our challenges, the math program financially finished the year ahead of FY21. FY22 sales were $1.67 million as opposed to FY21 sales of, I should say, $1.61 billion, not million. The math program saw a tremendous change as far as staffing is concerned. In mid-FY22, the math program was at an all-time low in the number of resources. We had 4 contracting specialists remaining to work 800 contracts. The supervisory staff had also taken new jobs. With all the previous supervisors gone, I assigned Tyler Sykes, my deputy, to lead this small team and rebuild the program. Tyler, the remaining 4 specialists, and other key members of my staff took this role on with gusto. First priority at hand was the need to hire the team, and the team aggressively took this on. An aggressive hiring plan was developed, and this strategy resulted in the center hiring 16 new specialists and a branch supervisor, Mr. Phil Potok, within a 6-month time period. This is just unheard of results. Striving for excellence is what the team did. They might have been small in number, but they have made huge impacts to the math program throughout this hiring effort. The team also put in place an aggressive training program for new associates, many of which did not have math experience. This training program was developed by our R6 team, and our associates have completed this program. These new associates have been assigned to teams and now have their own workloads. Regrettably, we are not where we'd like to be with cycle time, but we are on an uphill trajectory. Cycle times are getting shorter, and they will decrease as the team members become more experienced in this program. Speaking of all these new associates, many of you have seen the names on your contract documents, but in the virtual environment, try to put a name with a face. So in an attempt to enable all of you to put a name in the face, I have pictures and a little few tidbits of your new associates, and I'd like to introduce them today. Next slide. First up, we have Arthur Proctor. Arthur is a contract specialist. Arthur lives in Missouri. He graduated with a bachelor's in general studies and with a minor's in business and criminal justice from Columbia College. His background includes Army National Guard and DOD. He's an avid Chiefs and St. Louis Cardinals fan, and he enjoys coin collecting. Next up is Richard Marquez, a contract specialist, lives in Arizona, graduated with a bachelor's degree in criminal studies from San Diego University. Background includes Navy and local federal government. He's a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, GU jiu-jitsu, and coaches the kids' GU jiu-jitsu program at the gym. Kevin Armstrong is next up, contract specialist, lives in Florida. Graduated with a bachelor's in business from Emmanuel College and an MBA from the University of Phoenix. His background includes Navy, USDA, and DOD. Enjoys mini vacations, playing basketball, running, and trail biking. Stacy Fratzel, contract specialist, lives in Kansas, graduated bachelor's in business from Baker University. Background includes the VA. Hobbies include going to her son's basketball and baseball games, going to bingo with her mom, and having family movie nights at home. Next up, we have Jamal Carter. Jamal is an acquisition project management specialist, lives in Georgia, Graduated with a bachelor's in business administration from St. Leo University and a master of science in management from Argosy University. Background includes Army and VA. Enjoys being lakeside, bowling, trying new recipes on the grill or in the kitchen, and watching college sports. Nakia Jr., contract specialist, lives in Texas. Graduated bachelor's in liberal studies from Purdue University. Background includes the Army. When Nakia is retired from the Army, enjoys watching sports, especially the LSU Tigers and New Orleans Saints. Curtis Gathright. Curtis is an IT program manager. Curtis is from Missouri, graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Computer Information Systems and a minor in Business Administration from Lincoln University. Background includes the Social Security Administration and state and local government. Curtis enjoys cooking, participating in trivia challenges, and collecting classic video games. Also serves as a mentor for the high school's robotics team. Christopher Gonzalez, contract specialist, lives in Ohio. Graduated with a bachelor's in economics from Washington State University and an MBA in project management from Grantham University. Background includes U.S. Marine Corps and National Air Guard. Hobbies include exercising and playing the ukulele. Tabitha Smith, contract specialist, lives in Missouri. Background includes military support, 22 years of serving on several boards, commanders initiatives, and action councils, and GSA. Hobbies include traveling, museums, hiking, being outdoors, and just began kayaking. Janita Bailey, contract specialist, lives in Northern Virginia. Graduated with a Bachelor of Science and Master's of Business Administration, both from Hampton University. Background includes DoD and private sector experience. Hobbies include spending time with family and friends, going on random outings, sporting events, festivals, feasts, etc., and shopping. Robin Hughes, contract specialist, lives in Florida. Graduates with a Master's of Business Administration in Government Contracting and Acquisition. Background includes Air Force retired. Enjoys reading and going to the beach. TJ Stevenson. TJ is a contract specialist. TJ got out on parental leave before we could get a lot of information from him. But we look forward to having TJ on the team and great things to come. James Justice, contract specialist, lives in Mississippi from Kansas City, Kansas. Graduated with a bachelor's degree with a specialization in management and an associate's degree in accounting. Currently working on a PhD in learning management. Background as a contract specialist from the Army, DoD, and the VA. Hobbies include recycling, e-waste, and aluminum and processing them into ingots and spending time with kids playing games. Bill Putoff. Bill is our Mass Branch Chief. Bill is a Supervisory Contracting Specialist, of course, Mass Branch Chief from Branch B. He lives in Missouri. Graduated with a Bachelor's of Business Administration from the Rockhurst University and a Master's from Baker University. Background in private sector, hardware and transportation, and GSE AFCIP working with the Schedule 70 mass contract. In ITC, or the Miss 70 Schedules mass contract, which is now called, Phil was a contracting officer and team lead. His hobbies include reading, kayaking, and recently started cycling. Carla Nash, contract specialist, lives in Missouri. Graduate of Metropolitan Community College. Background includes previously a contract specialist with GSA Region 7 and admin support in Region 6. She enjoys spending extra time with her 2 adult children and 2 canine fur babies. Sarah Baer, contracting officer, lives in Missouri. Graduated with a bachelor's degree from Northwest Missouri State University. Has spent her entire career, 15 years with GSA. Enjoys listening to true crime podcasts, working on what else she can find time while juggling my 3 children, and cooking, trying new recipes as often as she can. Tristan Solomon, contract specialist, lives in Missouri, pursuing a bachelor's degree in psychology from Metropolitan Community College. Background as a contractor for GSA for the past 15 years and made the jump to the government side. She also enjoys kayaking, crafting, hanging out with family, and listening to music or going to a concert. Keith Gallagher, engineering supply specialist, just moved to Pennsylvania from Coastal New Jersey. Background in the U.S. Navy, private sector, and GSA, GSS in Region 2. Hobbies include developing his love of cooking. The term farm from table has taken on a new meaning. Also enjoys traveling with family and is planning a European river cruise in April with a stopover in Paris. Well, I hope you've enjoyed meeting your new contracting officers and specialists. They're a great group and they are going to serve us well. And they will also be in keeping with the theme, striving for excellence. That's the goal for the year, excellence in all we do. Thank you today for joining us, and I hope you enjoy your time. We really appreciate you visiting with us today. And now it's time to turn my introduction over to get on with the agenda.
That was great information from Teresa and an opportunity to get to know our new hires and a little bit about them on a personal level. Back over to you, Mark.
Now for our next presentation, Mr. Tyler Sykes. Tyler is the Deputy Director of the Heartland Acquisition Center. Many of you have worked with Tyler in the past. He's going to provide you with some great information on specific internal improvements. Take it away, Tyler.
Hey, thanks, Mark. Appreciate everyone being here. So, hey, yeah, Tyler Sykes, Deputy Director here in the Heartland Acquisition Center. Over the last 6 months or so, I've been working as the acting branch chief, trying to get to, like we're talking about, like Teresa talked about, rebuilding our Mass branch to functionality. I'm sure lots of you on this call have been in the thick of this with us, experiencing kind of the issues we've run into. And I think really what we want to talk about today really is that striving for excellence, give you some background on a lot of the improvements we're trying to make, what we're doing with all of the folks that Teresa just mentioned, all these new folks, how that's going to apply to, awarding, administering these contracts, to our business relationship and all of that. So go ahead and go to the next slide and we'll kind of get into that. So for today, I only have 2 slides, and it's by design. This is a partnership, right? So one slide's internal, one slide's external. It's not all the information that goes around or has been happening within the Mass branch. It's not everything that we're trying to work on. But if I get anything across today, it's just the general idea that we view this as a partnership with industry partners. We know and understand that our Mass branch hasn't been where it should have been over this last year. Like Teresa said in her recording, we were down to 4 working contract specialists at one time, dating back to just late August, early September. Which we understand with everything going on from an economy standpoint, inflation, it was just kind of a perfect storm that hit. And again, what we want to concentrate on today is what we've been doing, what we've been diligently doing to try to add resources to get back not only to where we were, but really kind of position ourselves for growth in the future to make sure that, we're looking at this from a business perspective as much as we can. A partnership perspective. With that, okay, we said we were at 4. We were at 4 just dating back to late last year. I can happily say right now, and you got to meet a lot of them there. There's a few others too that are newer that weren't even introduced, but our Mass branch is up to 21 working contract specialists and contracting officers. Many of those were in a training program. Y'all know this program it can be a very complicated program to work in, whether you're a contractor or whether you're a contract specialist or contracting officer. So a lot of what we had to accomplish was around training. Teresa touched on it, but there was very much a need for a good training program to be set up for these incoming hires, especially at the rate they were incoming. And happy to say, with a lot of help from our internal branch, our resources, the PMO, other regions even stepping in to help. We've essentially trained up about 15 new people to come in as part of that 21, and actually soon to be closer to 23 or 24. So we're ramping this up to really get to, be able to fulfill our side of this partnership is what we're going for. What's that mean? Just wanted to kind of touch on a couple of high level areas in that, hey, I can say we had 4, now we have 24, but really, what does that mean? It means workload size considerations. So the contracting officers, the contract specialists you're working with, generally, if you took this time a year ago to now, we are generally going to have them working on about 50% fewer contracts than they would have been working. What's that mean? It should mean faster contracting actions, more individualized attentions, on the contracts that they're working on. Generally, I know the MAS program, we have to touch everything, right? We have to get to that fair and reasonable determination. We have to make sure that compliance flags are taken care of. We have to process these mods individually. So if that's the case, how do we make that go faster? One of the big steps in that is making sure that we have the personnel trained to do so. So that's what we've been working on by and large for the last several months. Another thing that, we've identified, and this comes from, talks with industry, this comes from talks with our more experienced contracting staff, just overall process improvement and process standardization. Talking to folks, I think one of the biggest frustrations that we find, with our talks with industry is that depending on the contracting officer or the contract specialist you're working with, one might say something this way and one might say something that way. Well, it's a complicated program, and that's to be expected at times. That being said, I think that there are some process standardizations that we can work on that also lend themselves to a process improvement, lend themselves to efficiency. We're looking into automation. We're looking into, how do we give our contracting officers some of that how, to get from point A to point B so that they feel comfortable processing these actions, and our industry partners feel comfortable, with what's required of them for processing these actions. We get everyone on the same page. The idea is that these actions can go, much faster. So that's not a completed area. It's not even near completed. There's going to be a lot of conversation on that coming in the future, over the next few years, really. And a lot of that conversation for that last bullet point there is going to be around industry perspective. Our leadership, our contracting folks, we understand that we don't have all the answers to this. There's a perspective that industry has that we don't have, that's extremely useful for how we're doing business, because ultimately, you have to look at this as a business. We're here to help you help our customers. We are a conduit for the products or services that you all provide. So we want to be able to do so. We have to make sure we check our boxes. We have to make sure we follow policy, that we're holding up the promises of the MAS program. That being said, there is room, again, in that process improvement, in process standardization, for that industry perspective, for figuring out more efficient ways to do things with that. So there will be many more of these conversations. This is, again, everyone's muted on this, but, one of the things we're going to look at having is more open office hours. We're going to kind of get that going now that we've kind of triaged and got our working structure in. I think Teresa mentioned we have our new MAS branch chief, Philip Putoff. I'm extremely excited to have him. My background is not necessarily in the MAS program, but his is. So he's going to be able to add, additional ideas, additional perspective from that MAS program to kind of work through. Again, all this is a process. So we just have to figure out the most efficient way to do that. Curtis Gathright, going back to the automation piece, I just wanted to point out, Curtis coming in, we understand that we can't continue to always do things the way we've done things and expect, things to just automatically improve. And part of that is better understanding of data, better usage of data, more efficient usage of data, making sure that, the processes that we do, the systems that we use, the information that we share with our industry partners, it's done so efficiently. And so it was a resource that was directly brought in from the center, because we recognized that there was a need for better data usage, better data utilization, and honestly, better data sharing with our industry partners. So, again, consistency, providing this data, these are a few of the internal improvements they're going to be working on, smaller workloads. One more thing to mention on this too, as far as the smaller workloads and what we're doing strategically. For new offers, historically, our contracting staff would be handling modifications at the same time working on a number of new offers. In the coming years, we've actually went out and we've awarded a contract for contractor support that can largely concentrate their efforts on the administrative side of getting these new offers to where they have to be, to where a CO looks at them. What that's going to do is it's going to allow our contract specialists and actually our contracting officers to free up their time to work on these incoming modifications, to do them faster. So again, it's trying to take almost like a consultant type approach to how we do business, not looking at it because, hey, we've done this is the way we've always done it, but we understand very much that we have to do things better. And so the whole center is bought in. There's a lot of buy-in. We're looking into that. It really is buy-in on how we can do things better within the entirety of this branch. So really proud of the group for that. Why don't we go to the next slide? External considerations. So again, part of this partnership moving forward, a big part of this to me is going to be just the sharing of data. When it comes to catalogs, I think there's going to be a large emphasis on catalog management. And I want to preface anything I say to this with the partnership holds up here too. Hey, if you can't get a mod in that gets items off of your contract in time and you're having cancellations, that affects your ability to manage your catalog. And that's not necessarily on our contractors. That's on our inability to do that. We want to fix our part of this, but in this partnership, some things that we want to highlight, on this catalog management, on-time delivery, cancellations, updating order status, TAA, MIA, all these flag type items. And all of these items generally revolve around the customer experience. One of the big efforts, using the data that we have, it's how do we make and partner to deliver a better customer experience for everyone using schedules, whether that's folks that create a BPA against these schedules, or whether it's someone going on Advantage and ordering an item, making sure that what we have out there is actually available. It's actually available at the price that it's listed at. All this information, that adds up over time. So again, we're going to do everything we can on our end to hold up our end of this deal. The ask here is really look at these catalogs as we go forward and look at how accurate are we on time delivery? How are we doing on cancellations? And GSA is looking into providing that data, and already are, through a lot of efforts by Central Office AM. There's a lot of good data going out, and I think that's only going to continue to grow. And it's not meant to be a finger pointing exercise. It really is a partnership. This really is an opportunity to look at, okay, this is what this data is saying. This is why this is, what can we do better to ultimately get to that better customer experience. And then really in closing on that, something that was it was really interesting on that, because I know that even in Region 6 alone, we manage hundreds of thousands, we manage millions of part numbers, speaking specifically to part numbers. And just wanted to share some preliminary demand data of what we see from our end, in that 50% of the sales that we see come from less than 5,000 unique items, and 90% of sales come from less than 100,000 unique items. So I put that into the characterization of, I know that we deal with a lot of items, and many of these items that we deal with are maybe they never actually get sales. So again, that goes with industry feedback, industry perspective. There will be conversations with GSA between industry. How do we better partner to ensure that, hey, we're not managing items and taking time to manage items that never even get sales? How can we effectively get to the point where, hey, we're offering our customers what they need, and we're doing so as efficiently as possible. And, with everything that we're doing and with this partnership, that's the goal. It is to form an efficient partnership to really deliver that customer experience. So I think that's it for me, Mark.
Thank you, Tyler, for that great information and the exciting improvements taking place and being put into motion around the center. Over to you, Mark.
Okay, it's now my pleasure to introduce our next presenter, Mr. Stephen Kinsella, Branch Chief, Acquisition Operations, as well as Kylie, a contracting officer and our great host today. They're going to speak during this presentation, and Stephen's going to start out by going into detail about Instaquote for part numbers, some success stories. Now, Stephen, the floor is yours.
Hey, thanks, Mark. I appreciate that. And yeah, I'm going to share from my screen, so I'll walk through slides that way. So let's share that. All right. Okay, so hopefully everybody's seeing this deck here. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. And walking through this, and Kylie's our Instaquote for Part Numbers manager. She's really at the center of this machine, making it work. And let's get started. So this is just industry innovation all the way through. This was the hard work of industry partners, that some of which are on this call, who figured out a way to make this work for the U.S. Army. So got on base, got with customers, found a niche demand, helped those customers place those orders in their GCSS Army system, route those to GSA. GSA then, over a few years, as these orders trickled in and then started to grow, kind of started to set up some back-end systems to really handle this, compete this, and steadily bring in some additional vendors. So, it's a part number based solution. This is going to be for products vendors. I know there's a mix of service and product vendors here today, but if you sell products or part numbers, then this is for you. And this is a requisition based solution. I'll get into what it is and what it isn't as far as how these orders come in the channels. But it's there because sometimes national stock numbers don't always meet the need for our customers. Sales growth, high level numbers there. 24 million in FY22. Teresa mentioned this in her comments. Now we're over nearly 10 million through just the first 3 months of FY23, and it's showing no signs of slowing down. So what it is, it's just tools and processes combined to speed order fulfillment. We're obsessed with the customer experience. So more and more we wrap everything we do around that, whether it's these automations or the way we set up our workload. It's all with really a simple aim. It's improving the customer's experience. So and for vendors as well, there's a simple sign up process. It's like a 30-page doc. You read through that, you sign it. You have to know what you're talking about. It's not for everybody. You have to understand how requisitions work. You have to understand what Mil Standard 129 means, where to find that. You need to know what a package is supposed to look like. People can and do get fined when they fail in that regard. So I wouldn't just sign up if I have a part number to sell. This is very specific to military customers. It's a set of Google Sheets. You get in there through your GSA affiliated customer account, the GACA, set up according to a particular naming convention. And once you do, your quote goes on a sheet that looks like, I'll hide some of my tabs here. Far too many. 1 second. There we go. So you would be a unique sheet would be created for you as a vendor. In one tab, you'd see all the standing orders that are incoming and the status of those, accepting quotes or otherwise. And you'd have the opportunity to quote on any and all of those or additional items that you have in your catalog. Those would go here on your vendor import tab. And then basically a reverse auction commences once the quotes are input. So after a certain number of days, all the quotes across all of the vendors, and there's about 15 active vendors currently and growing on the part number side of the house here. Those would all be compared, and then the award would be made to the lowest price technically acceptable quote. Just going back to the slides here. And after that evaluation is done, our Hackman bot, which is what Teresa mentioned as well, our robotic process automation, our FAR compliant evaluation rules are encoded with that bot, and that bot executes on those and routes the orders to the LPD vendor. Again, this is for requisitions only. It's not for purchases. It's not for purchase card orders, at least not yet. Maybe more to come in the future. And so far, it's a 100% Army solution. It's available for other services. They just haven't figured out how to use it yet, but we're working on that as well. I'll get into that. Yeah, the routing indicator code is to GSA for those Army customers. We've created a guide, a link to which I will share in the chat here towards the end. Yeah, so it just standardizes all this incoming requisition activity from the Army, allows us to compete it and award it in a FAR compliant manner. And the contracting is done at the point of PO creation. So there's no giant contract that gets competed, and we don't award, you know, hundreds of thousands or millions of items that we may or may not need. We only compete items that we actually have a standing order for. It is not GSA Advantage. These items are not on GSA Advantage. So it's not going to be something people use, federal or military customers use their credit card for. These items are also not on FedMall. As I mentioned, they're not contract based. Last but certainly not least, it's not a way to circumvent the micro purchase plus restrictions on brand name purchases, which by definition all part number orders are. So anything that is over the micro will be held and separately competed. We are leveraging ways to make that more efficient. It is still unavoidably manual to a certain degree. It is critical that customers submit their contact information when they do make orders, especially if they go over micro. So again, certification and sign up, you know, you choose vendor portal or EDI. There is a requirement that you have to have at least 50 orders per month to be eligible for EDI with GSA. These are some new rules going into place. GSA incurs a cost. We don't do EDI in-house. We contract for that, and that costs us money. So you have to reach a certain volume to be plugged into us with EDI. Just keep that in mind, especially if you get invitations from third-party vendors to get you signed up with EDI. It's not going to happen unless you have a certain volume. Just keep that in mind. But it can be more efficient for those of you with larger volumes, of course. Otherwise, there is Vendor Portal, and Vendor Portal has a bulk upload function now, so you can update statuses up to 40 or 50 orders at a time, I believe, possibly more. As I mentioned, you need to understand Mill Standard 129. You need to understand requisitioning. It's not simple and it's not straightforward. As much as we've automated major parts of it, there is a learning curve, so just keep that in mind. But it is a massive opportunity just the same. We make it easier for smalls to work with us. You know, one of the really nice success stories we saw was a small disadvantaged business came on within 6 months, was doing a significant amount of volume through this program, has really met a niche need for the Army with kits, in some cases custom built kits, that has really helped us meet the Army where they are without having to set up a 6-9 month, year-long plus evaluation process for a large contract. We don't need that. We just do it at the point of the order, like I said. So it's much, much more responsive to our customers. Their needs for various items, as you know, change all the time. And working with DoD, they don't always need items that can be found at a Home Depot or in Walmart. So that's where our vendor community comes in. You guys have some of those unique items that can meet their need and can only meet their need. I've mentioned some of that. I talked about the benefit of this. It's editable in real time. So unlike many of your contract solutions with GSA or with other entities, there isn't a long drawn out process for changing prices, changing DARO, changing item descriptions, updating part numbers. That is done by you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week as you need. That's because, like I said, the contracting is done at the purchase order level, so all the competition is contained therein. You don't have to manage some massive list of items. You manage what you need to, and you do it right away. Your change is reflected immediately on the quote sheet. And then secondarily on our catalog, which I'll show you now, not an ordering catalog, but a catalog footprint that I'll give you a preview here in a second. And again, reminder on Micro Plus, those take more time. We do have back and forth with customers, communication. We have to get salience from them on those. That takes a little bit of time. All right, so current, let's talk about this dashboard here. So that is now live. I'm going to go there. I actually had this up, and I need to hide this panel so I can see what I'm doing. There we go. Okay. So this is the catalog that I mentioned. So it's up here in D2D. As a vendor, you cannot view this. You can't log in. You won't be able to see this, but your customers can. So you can provide them this link, which will be provided in the deck that gets shared. And just a few key points. This feeds from the quote sheet that you populate. So when you put an order in here, when you put a quote in here, if it's filled out correctly and all of the columns are provided, that gets ingested and that gets placed up here. And then customers are able to view what it is we actually have to offer. This was unavailable for the first couple of years of this program. So I'm happy to report that it now is there, along with key fields that would be important for a customer to know, including a sell price. If you have questions about what exactly that means, let me know. And we also have included a lookup. This is really important for both Army, but especially Navy, who we're working with next to hopefully enable this for the system. That there is no NSN association with the part number being offered. If there is, we will pull it. We don't want to cannibalize the NSN system on behalf of the part number system, if you will. So those are kept separate. But again, the quote valid until date, the minimum order, the due after receipt date, the package quantity, all those fields are now going to be visible to the Army customer and eventually Navy as well, hopefully, and hopefully other services, right? We're not going to stop there. What Army just happens to be the most capable when it comes to ordering in this fashion. But all the necessary fields that they need are there. I mentioned it doesn't cannibalize NSN sales, and it's refreshed every 24 hours. If you change something here in 24 hours, it's going to be reflected out here. We have a guide, and we've distributed that, and we now have a GSA.gov explainer that I'll show you guys real quick. Right here, GSA.gov. Again, I'll share this link as well. This link is also in the deck. So GSA.gov, special order program, and under here, non-contract part numbers. This explains to an external audience, to customers, and you could share this link with customers to explain to them what this is and how it works, some of the benefits, how to order. To view that D2D site, they will need an OMB Max login. So we've included a explainer about that. And then the guide that kind of correlates with this is also linked up here. So I'll show you all that really briefly here. This is for the U.S. Army. It was designed to assist them with adding the part numbers to what they call in the G Army system, the material master. And then that populates the part number so they can accomplish what's called a Z non-standard transaction. Some screenshots of G Army. Also included is a link to the catalog so that they can, pull the information down from what's quoted, plug that directly into G Army. This should close the gap between what's sometimes set in that may not always match what is quoted. So this should also improve the quality of quotes that come in, etc. The quality of the order so that they're more readily matched with the needed item. So that's there as well. Last here, I think we're on my last slide here. It's highly scalable. Hopefully that's obvious. It's not easy. You shouldn't just sign up for the sake of signing up because you think you might want to participate. If you have part numbers, and particularly if you have direct marketing relationships with the services, in particular Army, then this might be of interest to you. There's some things to do that's customizable. Talk about those. And again, we're working with the Navy there to enable non-contract part number orderings via their requisitioning system, which is called One Touch. It's not It's not live now, but hopefully it will be soon. And I will stop there, but I had remiss to say, Kylie, if you've got anything to add, and I apologize, I took the whole entire time, but I did want to.
No worries. I know we need to move on in our agenda, but I will add really quick. I saw some questions rolling in the chat box. Please make sure you put those questions in the Q&A box and I will continue to answer them. Again, those questions will be posted in the days following this event to the Interact page and also the GSA YouTube channel. If you have any questions directly related to Instaquote for part numbers, please feel free to email me at kylie.faraz@gsa.gov, and I will be happy to talk to you about this program as I'm the one who would onboard you and be your direct POC for that. So please just feel free to reach out to me directly and put those questions in the Q&A box. Over to you, Mark.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Stephen and Kylie, for more great information and some incredible examples of striving for excellence. For our next session, Mr. Mark Duncombe, Director, Acquisition Management, General Supplies and Services Portfolio, is going to talk to us about take advantage of order status. Mark, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I believe Gary has some slides to put up. All right, and can you guys see me? Me live?
Yes, we can.
Okay,
Yes.
great, thanks. As Mark said, my name is Mark Duncombe. I'm Director of the GSS Acquisition Management. We're located here in Washington, D.C. We have acquisition centers not just in Kansas City, but also New York, Philadelphia, Fort Worth. And so that makes 5 centers. 4 out of those 5 centers have scheduled contracts. So we had done some surveys of our customers to find out what it is they liked and didn't like about a GSA Advantage. And they came back with some system things that we had an office work on. They came back with some internal processes that were affecting Advantage, and we worked on those. And then they came back with some that ended up being our contractors. And so that is what the project we're working on covers. And okay, Gary, slide. And this is just an example of a clause that talks about our Advantage purchase order portal. And what the customer said was that they were not getting status of their orders that they placed, that the orders were coming late, or that their orders would get canceled without any notice. And you know, there's a lot of hard work sometimes put into ordering these items on. You have to go and get quotes. Other times you review. 3 days, you have to go to your supervisor, get it approved, fill out forms. And then you place your order, and then the vendor comes back and says, "Oh, sorry, we don't have that item anymore. That's obsolete." Okay, slide. So what's GSA doing to that? To the where's my stuff? My order was late. My order was canceled. What we've been doing, and if you are on Advantage, some of you have seen these. We send bi-weekly contractor emails with their scores for order status, on-time delivery, and cancellations. And we offer help. We did that for quite a long time before we started using the stick. We were using the carrot for quite a while, and we only got so far on that. We have been answering questions at Advantage order status at gsa.gov. We've been tracking the scores. Our status scores have more than doubled since we started the project. And we have had to suspend some contractors from Advantage who have failing scores and then don't reply to our emails with plans to raise their scores. Okay, next slide. Just to show you how it works behind the curtain, when a customer places an order, it comes into GSA Advantage. And then depending on whether you, the contractor, have signed up to report on PO Portal. So PO Portal is a manual process where you're actually typing data into the PO Portal and providing status on it, or you use EDI, which is a more automated process. And usually it's the larger volume vendors that are using the EDI. So it comes through either EDI or Portal and comes to the vendor. And then the vendor comes back either through the PO Portal or through EDI to GSA Advantage, reports the status, and then Advantage sends back notices to the customer saying, here's the status of your order, or your order's in back order, the new delivery date, new estimated delivery date is X, or your order is canceled. All right, next slide. So I mentioned some issues that we had in our system that we had to make some improvements for. These are just some examples of what we did. We removed the 60-day limit on orders that you couldn't go back behind that. We added in the ability to report partial shipments. Believe it or not, we didn't have ability to do that before this project. We had some bugs behind the scene we had to fix. We had how back orders process on EDI as well. All right, slide. Some other enhancements. PO Portal. We now allow all our contractors access to PO Portal. So if you have EDI, previously you could not also have Portal. Now you can have both. If you're reporting by EDI and something has missed and you want to go on PO Portal and report that, you can do that if that's easier for you than redoing it on EDI. We allow for estimated ship dates on back orders. So if your order is due March the 15th, you talk to your manufacturer, there's no way, that's going to be April 15th. Then you come in, you put the order in back order, and then next to it, you put in what the new delivery date is going to be. That way the customer knows that it's coming, it's just going to be late. EDI and CXML, we send PO acknowledgements from the gateway to Advantage and updated the project there. And our Advantage customer interface, like I said, we're providing estimated ship dates on back orders, and we corrected some alignment issues. All right, next. Here are some of our metrics. Our ship status baseline was only 38% of lines had status. You can see through 21, 22, and 23, we went from the 60s to the 80s. And if you include back orders, we're up to 90%. So we are continuing to send out those biweekly emails. If your score drops below 70%, you're hearing from us about a plan to increase. And then we have also have started talking to the top 10 contractors who have the most missing statuses to see how we can partner with them to get them to report even more statuses. And our October 2022 baselines are on time 44% and cancellations 21%. All right, next slide. We have a frequently asked questions. You go to vsc.gsa.gov. If you don't know about that site, that's our vendor support center. Then you click on multiple award schedule. Then you click on mandatory order status, and we have a list of frequently asked questions there that are good. And we update that as we need to. All right, we'll see who remembers from the past slide. We're going to have a poll. What percent of Advantage orders we determine to be on time? And there are the 4 choices. All right. Gary, what do we have there? Okay. Yeah, you would think so. 63% of our respondents think it's 65 or 75%. 14% think 55, but it's actually only 45, which is not very good. Customers want something better than that. So they either want to have you to meet the days that you're giving them an advantage, or if you can't do that, if you know you can't do it, if you know your supply chain has been slowed down, your delivery used to be 5 days, now it's going to be 7 or 8 or 10 days, then come into your contracting officer. Tell them that. Tell them your delivery time has changed. Here's your new delivery time. We're going to put that in advantage so that the customer gets a realistic delivery date. And sometimes they even use the delivery time as a best value factor. So they might even be willing to pay more if they see on advantage that one contractor is going to deliver faster than the other. So we want that information on advantage to be accurate. Okay, we can close that one. Next, poll. What percentage of advantage orders are canceled? 3%, 5%, 10%, or 20%? And we found the biggest item when we are contacting contractors to see why they have so many cancellations is they say, oh, well, we have items that have been discontinued and we just haven't taken them off of advantage yet, or we have a mod in to delete those and it hasn't been processed yet. All right, let's see what our answers are here. Most of you got it correct. 20% of our orders are getting canceled. That is quite frankly dreadful. The industry standard is maybe 1 or 2% at the most, and here we are at 20. So we really need you contractors to keep up with your item deletions when an item is going to no longer be available. If you're seeing the same item canceled over and over, or the same problem happening over and over, and you can't fix it, please let us know what it is, so maybe we have a fix for it. All right, we can close that. Next slide. Here are some points of contact for you for EDI vendors. We have an office here that will help you with your EDI questions. If you decide you want to change from portal to EDI, they can help you get that set up. And that's edistat@gsa.gov. And for PO portal, it's vendor.support@gsa.gov. Vendor.support is a great resource for you, by the way. If you have questions about different things, they can help direct you to the right people. And there are a lot of questions they can actually answer. Certainly on PO portal matters, they can answer those. And we have even a link to the PO portal guide. So if you guys are using PO portal and you want to know more about it, the guide is there. There's even a video that trains folks how to use portal. Then if you have general questions that you don't put on the Q&A today, but you want to ask us later, just email us at advantageorderstatus@gsa.gov. All right, next slide. And here we are for any questions that you guys have. I'll look to see if any come in on the question and answer. Oh, are the stats given specific to vendors working with the Heartland Center or overall? They are so that includes not only our 4 centers here in GSS, but also the IT center that where IT products are. and they are partnering with us on the project. Elaborate more on the differences between EDI and Portal. The big thing to know there is PO Portal is manual. You're going to be typing everything into that. You're going to have somebody sit down and they're going to have a piece of paper with all the answers on it, and they're going to type all those answers into PO Portal. They're going to type in the tracking number. They're going to type in the ship and type in whether it's canceled, back ordered, or shipped. EDI is a system where you set up for your computers, your order processing system to talk to our order processing system, and those statuses and things go automatic. It's not somebody sitting typing all day. That's the big difference. Orders coming in via OMS versus GSA Advantage Portal. Great question. OMS is the system that processes orders for our global supply program. Those emails come out from, and OMS system is unique for our requisitions. GSA Advantage PO Portal are only for orders that come through Advantage, and those are, the purchase card orders that come through on your schedule contracts. All right, if no other questions, Gary, is that my last slide or was there another one? Looks like that was my last slide. So thank you very much.
Awesome, Mark. Thank you for that great presentation. Next up, we have an exciting collaborative presentation between GSA and DLA. Jeff Thurston, GSA Director of Supply Chain Management, Angela Lehman, GSA Project Lead in Acquisition Management, and Elise Holton, a DLA representative. The floor is all yours.
Thank you, Kylie. Hi, everyone. My pleasure to be here. My name is Jeff Thurston. I'm Director of GSA's Office of Supply Chain Management, also known as our brand name Global Supply. I'm also representing our sister office to Global Supply, Retail Operations, which is comprised of 40 plus stores, primarily on military bases around the world. Taken together, these two programs represent GSA's overall global supply program as a whole. And the way to think of it is that you've been hearing, and this is primarily an acquisition focused meeting, obviously, but we're the program side, Paul and I, where we represent the customers and work with our acquisition centers, who are the engine. I like to think of our acquisition centers in New York, Fort Worth, and Kansas City, as well as Washington, DC, Mark's office, who just spoke, Mark Duncan. They support the global supply and retail operations programs and do an excellent job of it. So what I want to do today is just introduce Angela Lehman to you, who will talk to you about frustrated freight. But let me just put that in context real quickly for you and put our program in context for you. Together, retail operations and global supply fill about 3 million orders a year. Together, the retail and global supply programs represent over well over $1 billion in sales, and we support about 1.5 million items in tools, hardware, safety equipment, office products, security, pretty much you name it, everything that you supply the government with. It was mentioned earlier that delivery is our #1 priority, improving our delivery, getting quality delivery to customers. It's also our administrator's #1 or a top priority for our administrator and senior leadership in GSA. And it's very important. Obviously, it's #1 in priority to our customers. So what Angela's going to talk to you about today is Mill Standard 129 and anything related to frustrated freight, because when we changed our business model about 9 years ago from a supply depot oriented system to, which was only 10% reliant on direct delivery from vendors, now we're 100% reliant. And that has really upped the game on compliance with military packing and packaging requirements, marking and labeling. They are our primary customer, not our only customer, and they're very serious requirements. And that's what we're going to talk to you about today. So I want to thank you for your support of the government's requirements in this regard. And I hope you get a lot out of this, because it is a vitally critical and important part to our successful global supply program. Angela, over to you.
Thanks so much, Jeff, for that introduction for today's presentation. My name's Angela Lehman, and I also want to introduce to you, we have another participant in our presentation today. Her name is Elise Halton, and Elise is from DLA, the Defense Logistics Agency. As has been mentioned today, you know, this is all about striving for excellence. And so in today's presentation, when we talk about frustrated freight, you can go to the next slide, please. You're going to have a really unique opportunity because we so often, you know, just frame as far as the government side, this is our requirement, this is what we need. Well, what we are realizing, and I think Tyler pointed this out earlier, is that since this is a partnership, it's essential that we hear from every stakeholder. How does your process work? What's our requirement? Let's work together. So the topics that we're going to cover today, I'll go through an explanation of what is frustrated freight, and I'll talk about defining it and the impact. We'll also talk about what in the contract says, hey, you have to comply with what we call with the contract clause, and that's the clause that will ensure that you don't create frustrated freight. So we'll walk you through that aspect. We'll talk about some of the trends that we're seeing when it comes to whether it's palletization or hazmat or other requirements that just aren't being met. We want to talk to you about some of those trends that we're seeing. And then, of course, we want to explain what you can do to reduce frustrated freight. Okay, that's a mouthful. And we're going to end with, it's a real opportunity here. Again, if we're striving for excellence, what do we need to do differently? What is it that we can learn? So this is really phase one of a whole process that we have planned. So I hope, you know, that you want to take advantage of this opportunity. I'm going to go ahead to the next slide, please. Okay, so with this slide, I do have a couple of poll questions. And before I get started, how about let's do poll question number 1. Okay, great. Mine are really easy, okay? Frustrated freight, the term or the presentation. How many of you have heard of the term or seen a presentation about frustrated freight? If you can go ahead and reply. That'll help everyone involved in this call really get a better understanding of how familiar you are with the topic. Okay, the results should be coming in pretty quickly. It looks like, okay, pretty good. Okay, and this is pretty much aligned with the makeup of the audience as well. So most of you have heard of the term frustrated freight, which is good. This is a good thing. And the other aspect is that when we use the term frustrated freight, it applies to the delivery of products, and in particular to our Department of Defense customers. And that's why I was saying it's a really good opportunity, because we do have DLA participants, Department of Defense participants in this presentation. So you can hear from the customers how they experience frustrated freight, okay? So to make sure everyone really gets it, we're all on the same sheet when it comes to frustrated freight, I have a couple of examples. So the first example is that I was celebrating my birthday month, okay? So it went on for a month because I'm that person. So I have this birthday month celebration, and every day FedEx, UPS, and the post office, they make deliveries to my home. And so when I received the box, first thing, of course, I asked my husband, okay, is this your box or is it my box? We don't know. We're looking at the outside of the box. We have no idea. So someone has to open the box. And so once I opened the box during my birthday month, what I discovered it was a really nice kitchen knife set. So they were, and the knives were animal print. So I'm like, wow, someone really thought this was a good match for me. Great. So, you know, I really appreciated it, but there was no packing list. And there was no note that said, hey, this is from someone. So it took me a good 3 weeks to really figure out who sent me this gift. Finally figured it out, but it was because there wasn't a slip on the inside. I could not tell. So I think if you magnify that out to a Department of Defense military installation. And they have a receiving warehouse for every location that's on their 12,000, 120,000 square acre military installation. Each little office, folks are sitting in those offices and placing orders. Well, when those orders are delivered onto a military installation, typically they're going to be received at a central warehouse. And so whether the military installation is in North Carolina or in Germany, what's happening is that, and this is the frustrated freight aspect of it, what happens is that all of those shipments go to that one central receiving location. The receivers look at the box and they say, okay, so let's see, who ordered this? From the outside of the box, they may not be able to tell. And if they can't, that's a problem. And that's because that means the label is not compliant with Mill Standard 129. And so then those boxes, they just go into a little corner in the back in the dark somewhere, and someone has to get back to them and figure out, they may have to open them, who placed this order? Now, in the meantime, the person who did place the order is calling the National Customer Service Center for GSA. And they're trying to find out, where is my order? It doesn't make sense. They know they've been charged, but they don't have the order. And so then the next thing that happens in this series of events is that the NCSC, the National Customer Service Center, they may reach out to the GSA contract holder to ask, what happened to the order? Give me an order status. And so what we have now is a situation where, as a contractor, you've shipped your order, but because it didn't have the right marking and labeling for a Department of Defense customer, no one knows who placed the order. So if you just magnify my situation with my wonderful birthday knives out to truckloads of shipments received in one location continuously for 12 hours a day, you can imagine how it really adds up if your shipments are not compliant with Mill Standard 129. And there on the presentation, you can see the GSA clause that says, hey, this is the requirement. And I think the interesting thing about that one clause, 552 to 1173, I think Stephen touched on it earlier. It's a lot in there. It's over 100 pages, and it references several other military standards. Depending on the product, I think it's item purchase descriptions, they also have requirements for shipping different items. So the bottom line is this, whether it's CONUS, being in the continental US, or overseas OCONUS, if your customer is a Department of Defense customer, you really do have to assume, and it's a requirement, that you need to have everything prepared in accordance with Mill Standard 129. So we had an effort probably about in 2017 or so, as Jeff mentioned. We went through a period where we closed the depots, and then we now have you folks, handling those orders directly to our customers, which is fabulous. It's made things very efficient and quick, so that's a good thing. But as part of the frustrated freight effort in 2017, we opened up an invitation for contract holders to go and visit some of DLA's consolidation and containerization points. It's also called a CCP. It's also the place where shipments come before they go overseas in many cases for our GSA contracts. So we opened up the opportunity for you, industry, to visit these DLA CCPs. I have a second poll question here. Thanks. Okay, so the question is, how many of you have ever visited a DLA consolidation and containerization point? Because if you can answer this question, that would be a big help. This is going to help inform the next part of the presentation, because again, we're really fortunate to have a cross-government kind of partnership going with this, because everyone's interested in finding out each other's perspective. So the votes are still being tallied there. Okay, interesting. Okay, cool. So see, a lot of people didn't get a chance to visit the DLA CCPs. And the benefit there, you can go ahead and close it. Thank you. So the benefit there is it tells me this. The opportunity we're talking about today will afford the DLA government points of contact, as well as the GSA points of contact to work with you as contract holders and really get a better understanding of what your fulfillment process is. Because you see, that's critical. And so we're looking at this as a real opportunity for collaboration. So at this point, just know that phase 3 of this whole effort is really where we go out and visit your site, and in the meantime, we'll have some conversations as phase 2 to understand how things work. But for phase 1, what I'll do at this point is turn the presentation over to my DLA colleagues, and there are several folks on the line. The primary speaker is probably going to be Elise Holton, and she's with DLA. You can go ahead to the next slide. And Elise, if you're on the line, you can go ahead and pick up from this point.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Elise Holton, and I work for DLA Distribution J4, Material Transportation Division. DLA Distribution is the storage and distribution branch for the Defense Logistics Agency. We are the largest Department of Defense shipper. Last year alone, we shipped over 1 billion pounds of freight to foreign military sales, non-DoD clients, and also the warfighter. I'm here today to talk about our consolidation point operations and what we need from you to operate smoothly, namely documentation and packaging requirements. So Angela went over shortly what frustrated freight was. For us specifically at our consolidation points, frustrated freight has to do with the Mill Standard 129 label, as well as certain packaging requirements that we have. You're going to hear many of us today talk about the Mill Standard 129 labels, or you may have heard them called the military shipping labels. So you can imagine with such large operations that having the correct information is paramount to getting these shipments to the final destination. I'm starting off on this first slide with pictures of labels, and these are not the correct labels, okay? I want you to look closely, and you can see that some have an address, some have a tag, some might have a long number with some X's on the end. So these are normal commercial shipment labels. They lack certain things that we need to move forward. Angela, can you see me? I'm sorry to interrupt here.
Yes, I can hear you just fine.
Okay, can you see me though?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I can't see myself, so, okay. So the various things that we need on the Mill Standard 129 are the transportation control number, and I'll go into this a little later about how important that is. That is not a normal tracking number. An overseas destination DODAC, another acronym for you guys. Just think of the DODAC as it's a code for the unit and also the location that it's going, so the address. And that can change, but the DODAC always remains the same, and our systems update that. So you don't have to worry about it as long as you have the right DODAC. The transportation accounting code, you might hear it, it's called the TAC. That's what it pays for the shipment. It's a code that pays for the shipment. Finally, there'll be a priority code, a required delivery date, which is the RDD, and a project code. So those last few will drive, if you're wondering, hey, how do they know whether to ship by air or ship by sea? Those mixture of things, as well as where it's going, will drive out how we ship the material. Next slide. So here is the Mill Standard 129 label we've all been waiting for. So this is what Angela went over earlier as a mandatory requirement for your contracts. As you see above, front and center, that is the transportation control number. And she really touched on something that's important with this TCN, because that person that orders will recognize that TCN because it has their DODAC and it has their requisition number in it. Okay, so that's why it's so important to have that TCN on that Mill Standard 129 label. So just take a second to look at the contents here. You can see where the project code RDD, priority are on here. Ultimate consignee, so consignee is the final destination where it's going. And then you can see the TCN on the top and how important that is. So you can imagine with the thousands of pieces of material coming in, and I'd love for you guys to tour the CCP. I saw that not a lot of you have seen one. You will just see it's absolutely amazing what we do. So it's important that we have this information so we don't waste time trying to find out where the material is going, what it is, who shipped it, or anything like that. So I hope you will understand how important this Mill Standard 129 label is. Next slide. So the next, there you go. So the next prong of our frustrated freight discussion is the packaging, palletization, and hazardous shipments. Even though you may be shipping to a destination, to several destinations, but your consolidation point is one destination, we want to make sure that those are all separated out. We do this because the CCP process is that we take your vendor shipments that are non-GSA, and also shipments from stock, we consolidate them and ship them out to one location. In this case, you can imagine the volume moves a lot faster when we mix everything together, and we can move a container or an air pallet more quickly. However, if you give us a big pallet full of everything that's mixed up, we're going to have to break that pallet down, move everything around to different lanes, and it wastes time for us. Secondly, and I just discussed pallets there, we have to make sure that for overseas shipment, all our wood, so dunnage, palletization, any boxes, crates, things like that, must comply with DoD Manual 4140.65. And this covers the heat treatment of wood and also the insect resistance. So this is called WPM compliant dunnage and packaging. And finally, and I foot stomp this as an Army person, that hazardous material must be certified to the final destination. Okay, so we've seen a lot of packages that are certified surface from the vendor to our CCP. Our employees have to go in, repackage, check the material, and recertify to go air or sea. So it's absolutely essential that your hazardous materials are certified to the final destination. This will cause less issues and also is good for us. We don't have to waste time looking at it and making sure that it's safe for transport. Next slide. So I'd like to summarize the key points that I've just covered on how we can reduce frustrated freight as a team. Mill Standard 129, I'll say it again. I just wanted to show you guys how simple it really is. All that information is included in your contract. It just needs to be in that proper format and clearly on the package. Our employees know what to look for. They're used to where the content is laid out, and this really helps move the freight along and move it to the right place. Secondly, and this is very, very important, please ensure that any organizations or teams that are shipping freight on your behalf are aware of the requirements of the contract and in compliance. Sometimes these other organizations may not be used to shipping to DoD customers. So please let them know that these are requirements, and it's very important that they follow them and how important it is. So that's all I have for the team here. I appreciate your time today, and I'll turn it back over to Angela for her comments.
Okay, thanks for that, Elise. Go back to the last slide for me real quick, thanks. Just want to cover those last two bullets there. So that first one on making sure that you engage all of your internal organizations to make sure they understand how to comply with the requirements, that's really key. as Elise pointed out, with your third-party shippers and suppliers, that's one side, that's external, right? But from an internal standpoint, make sure your contracting officers understand when they're seeing that 552-211 contract clause, what that really means. And then make sure the people who are also in the fulfillment part of your organization or the warehouse part of your organization, all the way down to the people who are preparing shipments and putting the items on pallets. Make sure they understand the need and the importance. What we covered today was really the label aspect, right? And it was definitely saying you can't use a UPS label and have a compliant military shipping label. They're two different animals. So, just make sure everyone really understands, wait a minute, it's something different that's required for Mill Standard 129, and it's for your Department of Defense customers. So that's pretty large. It's really probably going to be one of your largest government customers. So make sure everyone in the organization understands the requirement. And then the last bullet there is resources, because even though, it breaks down pretty much into being the requirements for labels and packaging and packing. Well, to do that, you have to know exactly what's needed. And in order to do so, I just want to point out, we have the GSA Vendor Support Center, and that's a website you can go to, and we have all kinds of frequently asked questions, and we have all kinds of guide documents similar to the pictures that Elise showed us that will tell you what's needed on a particular label. Now, you'll notice, if you remember, on some of the labels, there were barcodes. See, that's the whole process too, where you have to make sure there are linear barcodes and 2D barcodes. So the requirement has a lot of different aspects. And I think my big point for you is that even though there are so many aspects of it, there are some resources you can tap into, okay? We have them on our website. We have the contracting officers that you work with. They have folks they work with who are transportation specialists. And these folks, they know from a DoD standpoint, many of them have been on active duty and served with the Department of Defense. And then now they're government employees. So their understanding of what it takes to be compliant is there. So we have these transportation subject matter experts in all of the acquisition centers and also in central office where I'm located. We have folks who really understand this requirement, who can kind of help you understand what's needed to be compliant. And I think the last thing that's not listed here as far as a resource, and we can't really endorse just a particular company, but there are absolutely third-party companies that you can contract with yourselves to make sure that when your shipments are going out, no one's frustrated. The shipment's not frustrated, the customer's not frustrated, you're not frustrated, we're good. And these companies will really make sure you have the right packing list, you have the right labels. So, and you'll have to integrate that into your process, but just know that that's a commercial service that is available as long as you put a contract in place with them. Next slide, please. So I think we're coming up on the end here, and it looks like we may even wind up being a little bit early. So if you have questions or anything, let us know. But the big takeaway for this particular slide is really about the potential for continuing our partnership and continuing this discussion. For phase 2 of this, we really want to just have like a 90-minute meeting. Nothing, that's going to be really time consuming, but we being our DLA counterparts and some of the GSA subject matter experts, including your contracting officer, we just want to talk through, okay, what's your fulfillment process? And if this is the requirement for Mill Standard 129, how does this fit into how you fulfill your orders? Are we aligned? Are we doing things in the most simple way possible? What is it that could be simpler? I mean, this is really about really talking through and trying to form a partnership. And I tell you, for the 6 organizations who have actually visited one of the CCPs, one of the DLA's CCPs, one of the benefits is that that's how you start the relationship forming aspect. So no, you're not going to call DLA every time you have a question about how to ship something. But what you do know then is, hey, would it be a woman named Sherry Armheim? Would it be someone named Elise Holton? Who are the people who you could really, do a sanity check with from the DLA standpoint? I think that having a better understanding of your commercial processes is key for the government. I mean, we use your services, we appreciate your services. So this is all about really making sure, are we as cohesive as we really can be? So for phase 2, we're looking forward to, you can contact your contracting officers, let them know that you'd be interested. There are a couple of companies already who have agreed to really, help us understand your supply chain. And I think it's really, the bottom line is striving for excellence for our customers, for all of us, eliminate the frustration, eliminate hearing the frustrated freight presentation again, just really trying to make sure everybody understands the requirements. So with that, I think this is the last slide. If there are any questions, feel free to put them in the box or let your COs know afterwards. And I think that's it for us.
Angela, this is Amy. We do have some questions that came in through the chat box. I think Elise touched on this, but I wanted to see if somebody could either answer it over the call or could respond to it in the chat box. But it says, is there a way that vendors could attain access to military transportation tracking sites such as IGC? We lose visibility of items once they are delivered to the CCP.
I think that's a great question. Elise, I'm going to defer to you and then, I'm going to defer to you and then I'll let Ibn Timmons perhaps respond for GSA's purposes. You want to go ahead?
Oh, hello. So we've tried to do this with our DLA vendors and they are not able to get access. So we may have to work something out with the contracting officer or somebody in the contract administration that can assist with this. We've also dealt with other ITV systems that we're trying to get vendors involved, even like FedEx or something like that. That would also like access to those systems. So I think the best way is that I get back to you guys and we can discuss this, what we've done for DLA. I have to ask what the other MSCs have done. We try to learn from our relationships with our DLA vendors as well, and we can do some lessons learned as well from your vendors.
From the GSA side, in many cases, you're able to reach out to NCSC. They typically can, they have access to those things, but to gain your own access, I believe you need a CAT card and you have to get into a certain system. But yes, that's something that we could follow up on. But I would say at this current moment, it's probably not a possibility for a vendor to go into that system alone. There's no, I don't believe there's an outside access method for that system.
Okay, thanks for that, Elise, and Ibn Timmons as well. Ibn Timmons is one of the subject matter experts I was referring to who's with GSA Central Office. And even when it comes to like hazmat and understanding how that packaging and certification process should work, he's one of the folks who we could tap into. But that was a really good question. And as far as striving for excellence, I will make note of it as well, so that as we develop our solutions and really figure out, can we get that information, have it in the NCSC, and then make it available for you so that you could have visibility, kind of as Ibn was indicating. How much of a possibility is that? So it's a good question. And that's the benefit of the partnership, seriously. Anything else?
So I think you may have touched on it as well, but one of the other questions that came in through the chat box, Angela, is typically hazmat labeling would be for ground shipment, as that it is what needs to be disclosed when shipping to the DLA center. It looks like it was more of a statement than a question, but.
Oh yeah, that's a really good, interesting statement. And it should be a question, actually. Now, I'll touch on to a big picture. Anyone else who wants to chime in from GSA or DLA for that matter, feel free to. But what I will say is that we do have the contractual requirement and that says the shipments must be paid for hazmat shipments must be prepared to be delivered to the customer's location. That's the most basic way of saying it. And so whether it's hazmat that's going, in the case of hazmat going overseas, the requirement is actually to the ultimate customer who's overseas as opposed to over the road. And I'm going to stop there because I'm really not technical, but I do know that, but you're not alone with this question. I will say it from that standpoint. Clarification is needed for a lot of folks. Go ahead, Edmund.
I was going to concur with you. So what we have seen a lot in the DLAs, and Sherry can come in and agree to this, will concur with this, but what we see a lot of is the hazmat shipments will come into a DLA facility or any consolidation point. They can be anywhere, doesn't matter where, but it'll be packed or packaged for over the road. So there's different requirements and aspects, and there's different things you can do for over the road, but per the contract, this is where we want to kind of assist and help you guys and partner. Per the contract, we want to help you prepare it or make sure that it's prepared for the end user. So typically, if it's going over the road, it can go to DLA CCP in Pennsylvania, the consolidation points. It can go anywhere, but it's not packaged to go to, let's say, Germany or Afghanistan or something of that nature, and that's what it's supposed to be packed to. So yes, that's the clarity there.
Yeah, Evan, it's Sherry. So thank you. Yes. So when we get it at our distribution point, and this happens at the aerial terminals, Dover, McGuire, Charleston, Travis Air Force Base, the same thing happens there. When they get it and it's only certified for the CFR, which is over the road, and it's not certified for IMDG, or it's not certified for IATA, which is a movement by CVAN container or by air terminal, then it has to be repackaged. So in some cases, we had a shipment one time that was 5 very large pallets. The pallets contained individual boxes. All the boxes were nicely shrink wrapped on the pallets. So the pallets looked fabulous, but our team had to unshrink wrap all the pallets. We had to relabel every individual box, and we had to recertify the paperwork. So it took several hours to do that. So we spent a lot of distribution resources having to tear down the shipment, fix the boxes, repackage the shipment. So if it's going overseas, IATA or IMDG is the mode of transportation that you want to certify for.
And that's an excellent question. And it is a point of discussion for a lot of organizations, but I'm glad that we have the experts on the line to talk about it. And I tell you, even for this opportunity we're talking about, if these are the kinds of questions you just want to talk about and have someone, you have both organizations, the customer and GSA, who would be taking part. If this is something that you want to, kind of pursue, like help me understand once and for all, that's the kind of conversations we can really have to build some partnerships. Anything else?
Do we have any other questions for this particular topic or presentation? If so, please chat them in the chat box. I don't have any particular to that. If you do, just chat those in the chat box. I did have a couple other questions in chat box. They're not specific to your group, Angela, so or your session, Angela, but I did want to see if we could get those addressed for the attendees as well. But if any comes in, I'll come back to you if that's okay. Okay. One of them that came in a bit ago, this is going to be more for a contracting officer on the line that might hopefully be able to help answer this. One of the questions came in saying, I'm attempting to update my terms and conditions for a mod. How do I figure out the priced list version? Is it simply the latest mass mod I've signed? I don't know if we have Aletha or Tyler or Paula, Stephen on the phone that can possibly help answer that question that came in.
Hey, Amy.
Hi, Tyler.
Hey, so I can't necessarily answer that question, again, not coming from the MASS program as a whole, but if Paul is on or if Phil's on, I bet they could help out with that. If not, we can get a written answer to that question as well.
Okay. I see Paula too. I can't hear you, Paula.
Yeah, it looks like she's muted. How about you, Aletha? Want to
How
take a
about you,
stab?
Aletha? Gary, are they muted for some reason? I can't hear either one of them.
So I can touch on the answer. So every refresh is a little bit different, but you're going to go back to that refresh that touched on the terms and condition, reflecting the IFSS 600. I'm not sure exactly which refresh that occurred on, but that's be the most latest one you're going to go back to. As well as kind of reference within the solicitation.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate you responding to that. We're going to need to figure out why Paula and Aletha.
I say we can make note of that. So later on, Paula is going to talk more about your scheduled contract. So we'll make note when she comes up to touch on specifically what refresh that occurred on and just kind of the general information for that link for that information. But more to come on the answer. But yeah, just the latest refresh, you're going to go back through to find that it mentioned about the terms and conditions.
Okay. I have a few more questions that came in. Another one is there a way to view current HAC metrics on modification cycle times by type of action? Tyler, any chance you can answer that one?
Yeah, I can try to take this one. So no current way externally to view that. We do have and track that information internally, again, right now with the transition, from the lower workforce to the new workforce, the numbers aren't necessarily as relevant as they will be in the future, but it is something that we do track. So if there's any questions on specific modifications, that anyone has on their contract, we can also answer to that.
Okay. And then Tyler, I know you were typing on this question that came in, but maybe it's something that everybody should know about as well. How do I find the contracting officer for my contract? I am new to this, which actually this is probably great to share as well, just because we have so many new COs coming on board, like Teresa had mentioned, and you had touched on as well. So if you'd like to answer that, what's the best place for them to go to find who their new contracting officer is?
Sure. Yeah, I don't know if it's the best place, but I'd say one of the easiest places is GSAE Library. So GSAE Library, you can go directly into GSAE Library and you can search your contract and you can pull up that information, and that should give you your working contract specialist. The person that's going to be your day-to-day person that you work with to get those actions in there. You can also Google it too. I mean, if you Google your contract number, GSAE Library, generally that would be the first result that would come up, and then you can kind of get that information. You'll see exactly, who that contracting officer or contract specialist is, what their contact information is, and that'll give you that information.
Awesome. Perfect. Okay. Question on that. They will not only GSAE Library, but would they get that notification? Does everybody get a notification through like that modification too? Is that what you were saying as well? Like if there's a modification done, will they get an email notification through that? Internal contract reassignment modification, I guess is what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Generally they should. Here recently, I think on February 6th, we did have a rather large contract reassignment. Again, we were taking all these contracts and reassigning them amongst these 20 or so folks. And so we had a kind of a backdoor solution that we work with systems to do. Now, an unfortunate side effect of that was that, some of these emails we're learning didn't go out, these automated emails informing folks of a change in CS or CO. So if you do have questions, Vendor Support Center is another area where you can go to get this information. But if it's just looking up like, who do I go to talk to about this mod, a quick search in GSAE Library will give you the exact person you go to, and they'll be able to help you out.
Awesome. And it looks like Stephen Kinsella put the GSAE Library link in the chat box, so take a look at that for sure. I think that is all of our questions that we've had come up in the chat box. I don't see any more that have come through for Angela's team come through, so I think we are good there. Oh, I do have another one that just came in. It says, where are we with mass consolidation?
All right, yeah, lots of good questions. So right now, that was part of this whole kind of, we're looking at everything strategically. So whenever we reassign the workloads, to the teams, they've been parsed out amongst the entirety of this team. So we're not overloading one individual with all these consolidation actions. There should be the bandwidth on each of these individuals to help, work through this. Again, with our new branch chief, Phil Putoff, coming in, this is an ongoing kind of issue, right? It's not an easy kind of thing. It's a complicated, there's lots that goes into each individual's contractor's needs for consolidation. But it is something that we're working on, and we do have a strategy in place. So in progress, I'd say, Amy, and as we get kind of going more, with this structure, again, it started around February 6th when we combined our training group and our production group into like one official structured mass branch. As we start going and seeing more and more improvement, all these things are going to start going faster and faster.
Hey, I had another one that came in. It said, what next steps should I take if the POC identified in GSA eLibrary doesn't respond to questions sent via email?
So the new branch chief is Phil Putoff. Just shoot an email over to Phil, and we should be able to get you all squared away on that and kind of clear up any confusion.
All right, I have another one that came in on the chat box. Just a reminder, if you can please put your questions in the Q&A box so that we can make sure that we capture those. But we have a question that came in. It says, can you explain the GSA streamlined process? Do I submit an offer via EMOD under my existing contract number? That's a good one.
Again, I am going to, I think I could do this justice, but with this many folks on the phone, and so as not to kind of sow confusion across, and hey, Tyler said this on this, I'd rather one of our experts kind of answer this. Paula, Phil, any luck with the mute working? Or
we can talk about this more under Paula's session, but basically you have, EMOD, think of your modifications, you have e-offer, which is kind of your new offer. So basically, as if you're starting brand new, you're going to submit an offer, but within the solicitation, you're going to see things that don't apply if you're a streamlined offer. So that's what the process is. It's going to start through the same exact process. So it'll be documentation you're required to submit based on the solicitation, and then it's going to be reviewed through the same process if it was a brand new offer on that. So just to kind of keep notes, so EMOD, that's going to be for your modifications, but e-offer is where you're going to submit that through that system.
Okay.
So just a quick note. So that can take, over 12 months to review. So if you're approaching towards the end of your contract term, communicate with your CO, get that submitted as early as you can, just to make sure we can kind of continue that through and there's not a stoppage for our customers.
Okay. Paula, any chance you can talk yet? Nope. Okay. Well, I know, has Andrew reached out to you to try and figure out? Okay. Hopefully somebody from tech will be reaching out to you to try and see if we can't get that fixed, especially before your presentation. So we did have.
I would say, I think kind of a good time to take a break so we can get our technical stuff kind of figured out. And some of these questions will kind of flow into some additional presentations we have going on. But so the agenda, it's been kind of posted over in that chat side as well as an image. And we're going to have that scrolling through once we hit that break time. But so right now it's about 1:25. So our break is scheduled to start at 1:30, but we're going to return back at 1:40 promptly to start the next presentation. So this is kind of a good time to take a little bit longer break, stretch your legs, come back. And here's kind of what's on the agenda coming up that you definitely don't want to miss. Next up, we have MRAS, and then we have my scheduled contract. What should I know? Potentially hearing from Paula on that. An Oasis Plus update and BMO sunset. Then facilities and construction, government-wide category overview. So once again, we're going to start promptly at 1:40. So please take a break and we'll see you back at that time. Thank you, everyone.